There are so many groups and organizations out there labeled as self-help or some form of rehabilitation that it would be impossible to count them. While some are harmless and truly beneficial to the people they serve, others have proven to be quite harmful. In a word, you could call these groups cults, and today I'm diving into one in recent history that you may not have heard of before. Welcome to my channel. My name is Chrissy, and I typically discuss things that are strange, mysterious, and creepy. If that interests you, please subscribe or follow me. If you enjoy this video, hit the like button, leave me a comment, or share this video with a friend. That really helps out a small channel like mine. Okay, now let's get into the story. In the late 1950s, a man named Charles Dederich stood on the brink of obscurity. He was a recovering alcoholic, broke, and struggling to find purpose. But then, in a stroke of inspiration or madness, he founded a small, unconventional group that would eventually grow into one of the most notorious cults in American history. This is the story of Synanon, the self-help movement that promised salvation but delivered fear, violence, and chaos. Synanon began humbly enough. It was a place for addicts, primarily heroin users, to come together, kick their habits, and rebuild their lives. At a time when options for addiction recovery were scarce, Synanon was revolutionary. It offered a strict, no-excuses program where participants were required to be completely honest about their lives. And at the center of it all was the game. On the surface, it sounded harmless. It was a form of group therapy, where members were encouraged to air their grievances and hold each other accountable. But in reality, the game was brutal. Participants would hurl insults, dig into each other's deepest insecurities, and push one another to emotional breaking points. It wasn't just therapy, it was a battlefield for psychological dominance. But it worked, at first. Synanon's tough love approach led to some incredible success stories. Addicts got clean, alcoholics stayed sober, and word began to spread. By the mid-1960s, Synanon wasn't just a recovery program. It was a phenomenon. As Synanon gained popularity, it began attracting not just addicts, but everyday people seeking a new way of life. Businessmen, housewives, even celebrities joined the movement. Synanon was no longer just a rehab program, it was a lifestyle. Dederich declared it a Synanon society, and its followers treated him like a guru. But something dark was brewing. Dederich's ego was inflating, and his methods were becoming more extreme. He declared that addiction was not the real problem, society itself was. Synanon became a closed community, and its members were expected to live on its compounds, completely cut off from the outside world. By the 1970s, Synanon had morphed into something unrecognizable. Dederich ruled with an iron fist, demanding absolute loyalty. Members were required to give up their possessions, their money, and even their families. Couples were separated and reassigned new partners at Dederich's whim. Children were taken from their parents and raised in communal environments where discipline was harsh and affection was scarce. And then came the sterilizations. That's right, Dederich decided that Synanon needed to control its population. Male members were pressured into vasectomies, and pregnant women were coerced into having abortions. This wasn't self-help anymore. It was authoritarian control at its worst. As Synanon evolved, founder Charles Dederich gradually shifted his stance on violence, using it as a tool to maintain control over the group. Much of the violent activity was carried out by a faction within Synanon, known as the Imperial Marines. This group committed over 80 documented acts of violence, including mass beatings of teenagers, severe enough to require hospitalization, and public assaults on ranchers in front of their families. Those who attempted to leave Synanon, labeled as splitties, faced brutal retaliation. One former member, Phil Ritter, was beaten so severely that he suffered a fractured skull and fell into a coma, later battling a near-fatal case of bacterial meningitis. In 1978, NBC Nightly News aired a segment exposing the darker side of Synanon. Following the broadcast, NBC executives, including the network's chairman, reportedly received a barrage of threats from Synanon supporters. Just days later, on October 10, 1978, Synanon members escalated their intimidation tactics by placing a defanged rattlesnake in the mailbox of Paul Morantz, an attorney who had successfully sued the group on behalf of former members. The snake bit Morantz, leaving him hospitalized for 6 days. This brazen act of violence, coupled with increasing media scrutiny, spurred a full-scale law enforcement investigation into Synanon. 6 weeks after the infamous snake attack, the Los Angeles Police Department, LAPD, searched the Synanon Ranch in Badger, California. What they found was chilling. Among the items seized was a recording of a speech by Synanon leader Charles Dederich, in which he laid out his ruthless philosophy. Dederich declared, "We're not going to mess with the old-time turn-the-other-cheek religious postures. Our religious posture is, don't mess with us. You can get killed dead, literally dead." His threats escalated disturbingly, stating, "I am quite willing to break some lawyer's legs and next break his wife's legs and threaten to cut their child's arm off. That is the end of that lawyer. That is a very satisfactory, humane way of transmitting information. I really do want an ear in a glass of alcohol on my desk." The sinister tone of these words revealed a dangerous organization willing to go to terrifying lengths to protect itself. While many media outlets in the San Francisco area covered the Synanon saga, their reporting was often stifled by legal action. Synanon's lawyers frequently sued for libel, attempting to silence criticism and protect the organization's public image. Ironically, these lawsuits backfired, granting journalists access to internal Synanon documents that exposed the cult's darker side. One of the organization's most persistent adversaries was the Point Reyes Light, a small weekly newspaper based near Synanon's main facility. Despite its size, the paper's reporting was meticulous and unrelenting, leading to a landmark $100,000 judgment against Synanon. In 1979, their fearless coverage earned them a Pulitzer Prize, making the Point Reyes Light the smallest publication ever to receive the honor. The fallout from the snake attack was swift and severe. Charles Dederich, along with Synanon members Joe Musico and Lance Kenton, son of jazz musician Stan Kenton, were arrested and charged with assault and conspiracy to commit murder. Musico and Kenton faced jail time, while Dederich avoided prison due to his declining health. Instead, he received probation and was barred from managing Synanon. Dederich passed away in 1997 at the age of 83, his legacy forever tainted by his cult's actions. Without its leader and burdened by scandal, Synanon rapidly deteriorated. The Internal Revenue Service stripped the organization of its tax-exempt status and demanded $17 million in back taxes, driving Synanon into financial ruin. By 1991, the once powerful group was officially dissolved, leaving behind a dark legacy of manipulation, violence, and a chilling example of how far a so-called rehabilitation movement could fall. Synanon's story is an example of the dangers of unchecked power and blind loyalty. What started as a lifeline for those in need turned into a nightmare of manipulation, abuse, and violence. And at the heart of it all was one man's vision, twisted beyond recognition by his own delusions of grandeur. That's the story of the Synanon cult, a movement that spiraled out of control, leaving behind a legacy of pain and lessons we can't afford to forget. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe for more mysterious content, true crime cases, and more. Until next time, please stay safe out there, and as always, stay curious.